Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're all well. Rob Edward is the name of the channel. Um, Only 8,800 subscribers. The video is called Howdy Mikulowski Exposing the World Fairs. Right, so this is all to do with the Tartaria conspiracy, if that's what you want to call it. And that there's an ancient civilization, well, an advanced civilization, that's somehow been wiped from the map in many ways, and wiped from history. And again, I'm not totally on board with it, to be honest, as I've said. But one thing that massively stands out to me is the American World Fairs. They're just far too elaborate. There's a picture on the screen here, as we can see. Um, Now, look at these. Do you know what I mean? Look at the detail. The elaborateness of each thing. Look at the size of them. I mean, that's another thing. Look at the size of them. Look at the people are down here, and you're talking 100 feet tall, maybe. Look at these massive statues. The statues are what 6 times bigger than a human on top of these things. And apparently, all these things were knocked up in 2 years and blown up when they were finished with them after the World Fair had finished. A lot of it just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense how fast they built these things. It doesn't make sense that they'll blow them all up when they're finished because it's beautiful and why would you? But yet, apparently, they blew many of these up after they're finished. It's just there's something going on here. There's absolutely something going on. I mean, it looks like there's metal as well strung between the things on both of them here, like metal things hanging. Um, yeah, I mean, the only thing the theory is the only thing America done here was put the flag up, and these were already here, and this is from this civilization that's been wiped from history. And the backing that it's got is the buildings that are here. Again, apparently we found America, and we've been there 10 minutes, and we're knocking up buildings like this, but we can't anywhere else. It's just that this is you know what I mean. None of the buildings any of the people are living in here are anywhere near as fucking elaborate as any of these. But this is the crack. So we'll play a little bit of this video. Rob Edward is the channel. It's on for an hour and a half. I mean, it's 12 minutes in as it is, and it's on for an hour and a half. So there's no way I'm going to play it all, but I'm just going to give it a mention because it's actually somebody that's looked into these world fairs and looked into them in detail. And to me, that's the one thing. The real big thing that stands out about this whole Tartaria thing is these world fairs are far too elaborate and good and well built and would take far too long to build. Um, for us to have done this when we've just rocked up to America, then the fact that they built them all for a world fair, then blew them all up. It's ridiculous. The whole of the notion is ridiculous. I mean, look at these. Look at how beautiful they are. Yeah, you built them for no reason and blew them up. Doesn't make sense.
Um, yeah, so that's why when I focused on the book, I focused only on the United States. Now, the world fairs were happening all over the world. There were fairs in Milan, in Belgium, in the Philippines, in Buenos Aires, and wherever. But like you say, if there were old style buildings, like maybe pull up, you had the one of Chicago earlier. Go back into Chicago. We'll show that one. It was the second screenshot in of Chicago. I think it was number one, number two. One of the yeah, I think it was that one. Yeah, there you go. So it's a perfect example of what we're talking about. It's a cover of my book. Um, so when you're dealing with, um, if you saw this in downtown Budapest or downtown Paris or Berlin, there would be an explanation. It's, well, these buildings were built in the 1200s, or they had been built in the 1200s and the war and they rebuilt them. I mean, this is the style. This is Chicago, 1893. Why do you need to be building in obvious? I mean, this is right out of downtown Rome. This is the main statue here, the statue of Colombia has a toga on. If we go to the next, what's the next screenshot you have?
I'm just going to pause before it goes to the next screenshot. So again, look at this. Look at these grandiose buildings here, as elaborate as the White House itself, and to the left and to the right. Plus this massive water feature in the middle here. I mean, this would take. Apparently, it took 2 years to build all this. Is the official story. Load of bollocks, absolute load of bollocks. This guy mentions later on, he shows some of these photos to construction people and asks if they could build it, and they say, yeah, modern times, with no problem at all, we could build it, but it would take about 15 years to build all this. And these lot claim they built it in two, and this is before we had any electrical machinery, apparently, but it was done in 2 years, and then blown up. And then blown up when they'd finished all this. They went to the trouble of building all this, putting a big water feature right in the middle, and when it was finished, the World Fair, they blew them all up. Can you believe that? It's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous that this. I mean, there's got to be some truth in these buildings. This was all found, and we used it for a World Fair because it was beautiful, and it was and then blew it up to get rid of the evidence. Makes far more sense than we built all this in 2 years for a World Fair, then blew it up when we were finished. It makes more sense it was already here. They used it because it was beautiful, and then blew it up because they didn't want it being remembered, which is why most people don't remember any of this. And it's took some very, very clever people to pick this out of history and ask questions, because these questions need to be fucking asked, to be honest. I mean, look at this. Look at this. Look at how elaborate everything is. The whole water. Look at this building here. 2 years apparently it took to build all this. I mean, this isn't the only one. This is one picture as well. So it's
For example, just in your list there.
So same building there. Here's a bridge, massive elaborate concrete bridge. Look at this building on the left here. All reminiscent of buildings you would see in London city centre, or Glasgow city centre, or Edinburgh city. All the city centre buildings that really are city centre look like they'll be there for quite some time. I mean, they bear a very striking resemblance to some of the buildings in London. Um, it's very similar architecture in many ways. All these old buildings that literally have been there all our lives and probably will be there till the day we die. But did we build them all? That's kind of the part of the conspiracy. Did we build them all? And now it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me how you can knock all this up in America in 2 years without electrical tools and anything at all, and then you blew it all up when you finished. Why would you do that?
I mean, when you're looking at this kind of architecture, first of all, why is this what they want to build? Why do they want to build with this style in the 1890s? And all of them, every World's Fair built with this kind of style. And again, the scale you're talking, the scale in Chicago, for example, I mean, there's 700 acres of this. One building, the manufacturer's building, was the largest building on earth, and it could hold 300,000 people. 300,000 people could fit in the manufacturer's building. That's one building on a site of 700 acres.
So, taking a look at this building as well, apparently hold 300,000 people. I think this is the building he was speaking of, but yet again, even the building in the background there, all got pillars, all elaborate. Look at this one with all the statues. Again, all the pillars and everything sort of Roman, Greek kind of pillars, and and again the water, the bridge, all this is concrete. Apparently built in 2 years. I mean, does that just sound like fucking nonsense to you or what? Look at it. Look at that. Look at all this. Built in 2 years and then blown up when they're finished. It just doesn't make any sense at all. All the similar style, as he says, every World Fair. It's kind of like we come across again that I can't. There's no real pictures of them building any of these buildings on it as well. There's kind of ones with scaffolding up, but none of them actually building any of these buildings.
300,000 people could fit in the manufacturer's building. That's one building on a site of 700 acres. How is that even possible? Like, how is that possible that you can have that kind of building quality?
Yeah, I mean, here's a picture a bit further out. Here's the statue right in the middle of the water. Look at the size of this statue. I mean, this statue is maybe 10 times the size of, maybe more than 10, maybe 15 to 20 times the size of a human being. Look at this massive building to the left here, this massive building to the right, the one at the bottom, all absolutely unbelievable. Better than Buckingham Palace and many palaces. And honest to God, look at how good these buildings are, and look at, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that A, they built this in 2 years, and B, they blew it up when they were finished, and it just doesn't make sense. And this is in early America in like the 1850s. This is being done here. They built this in 2 years in the 1850s. Again, this guy goes into, well, where's all the people that built it? Where were they living? Where were they staying? Who was feeding them? I mean, there's a lot of logistics goes into building this as well, never mind the fact it's built. It just doesn't make sense to me. I just can't wrap my head round how you would build this in 2 years, why you would destroy it when you finish, because look at how beautiful it is. And like the logistics of building this, where did the materials come from, who paid for it, who paid to build it. Apparently it lost £4 million back in 1850, the World Fair, which is about £400 million in today's money. So what's going on?
Like, yeah, one more. What's the next one you got? Let's see what the next. Yeah, that's a really good example. This is looking down from the core of the world back towards the main statue. And just this in itself. I mean, think of what it would take to build this today with this kind of finish. Now, we might as well tell the story, the historical narrative, the way they try to explain this building is that it is claimed it is built out of a material called staff, which is a type of plaster laid over top of a wooden interior. So similar to what the facade of a movie set would be built.
Yeah, that's the official story. That half of these buildings, although some of them still stand today, and clearly are made of fucking concrete. The official story is that half of the buildings were made of plaster, basically. I mean, you can tell that's bollocks, again, just by looking at some of these buildings. So that's the official story. So you're being lied to, definitely, because it's, I mean, the whole waterway system, again, people don't realise what it would take to install all of this water and have it clean, and again, like dig out the trench for the water, and it's all level. I mean, that would probably take 2 years to do. Again, he spoke to someone in the building industry, and he said it would take them 2 years to plan this, to literally plan this here. It would take 2 years with all the waterways and the elaborate buildings, and where it would take, again, and you can probably believe what I'm saying and what this guy's saying. Look at it, and it probably would take 2 years just to plan. Yet these claim they built it in 2 years. Half of it's made of plasterboard, which is a lot of bollocks because people are standing on top of the buildings and all sorts in other photos. It's all made of absolute marble and concrete and you name it. It's 100% real, but it was all destroyed, which is the very suspicious part of it all. You went to all this trouble to build this absolutely magnificent, one of the most beautiful things we've ever witnessed in our history of a complex here, and then you blew it all up when you were finished. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense.
Right? You don't, a movie set doesn't build all the buildings, it builds like just fronts. But first of all, these are not fronts. These are complete buildings in which had exhibits, priceless works of art. Countries sent tens of thousands to millions of dollars worth of material. you can't allow one of these buildings to collapse. In many cases, you could take elevators and things to the top of the buildings and have views over top of the entire exposition. Take the one like that one in Buffalo that you saw. That
So here we go. Again, architecture. Again, it's like the thing in London. Is it the museum at Trafalgar Square I mentioned? Is that very similar? And I said it's the English White House, but apparently the White House was the English Museum was built before the White House. But was it? And did we build it? That's the other side of it. So it's. I mean, it kind of looks like we did because it's there in London, but then there's some sort of crack up again. But something happened in the early 1800s, a kind of reset, and did the ruling power lose power? And the current global elites seized power after the global reset and reset history and reset our history. Well, I don't know, to be honest. It's kind of what I'm fishing around in, but there's something gone on here. And there's a big talk of like orphan trains in the 1800s, and massive asylums with loads of people who were in asylums as if they were trying to cover something up, and anybody who remembered was crazy, and they labelled them crazy and locked them away. I don't know, but there's definitely something going on here. There's something going on just with these world fairs. They're far too elaborate and well built to have been knocked up in 2 years is ultimately the first port of call here. But why you would blow all this up when you're finished is unbelievable. Look how beautiful it is.
one was that's a drawing, by the way, just so anyone, in case anyone's wondering. It's a drawing of a picture, but um, you could take an elevator to the top of the 325-foot high electrical tower. Like, are you going to have an electrical tower built out of staff, built out of plaster and wood, and have people on top of it taking elevators and collapsing? Just here's an example of people on top of one of the buildings looking across. I think that's the electrical building on the one side of it with the towers on it. Like, you're not going to build the building these people are standing on out of temporary materials, like they say. You can't afford to have the thing collapse. And
Yeah, it's bollocks. You can see him stood on top of it, and it's properly mirrored. You can see how big this building is here now. Look at this. Look at the size of this building. There's no way you could build that out of fucking plasterboard and all that bullshit. It's too big a structure. It wouldn't hold its own weight at the upper size. You know what I mean? It's clearly absolutely all made of concrete and marble and all this kind of materials. The bridge. It's again, here's this fountain. I mean, this is just one fair. I think we're just still on Chicago here, was it? Yeah, but look at it. It's unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. The size of all these structures, how big they are, how much effort's gone into all of this. Again, who paid for it? Who built it? Where did they live when they built it? The guy talks about how much it would cost per day. Say you had 40,000 people on $1 a day. Well, there's $40,000 a day to build this, and it took 2 years. So who's paying for all this? And the answer would always be the global elites, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, them kind of people. But they're also the people who's probably took hold of all of this and covered up history. But if it was them that built it, it would have been them kind of people paying for it. But there's no way that happened. It just did not happen. And we would have photographs. If they've got these photographs here of all this, why haven't we got any photographs at all of them building any of these things? It's just kind of scaffolding up when they've already built them. And there is a few places made. There is a few places made of like plasterboard, etc. But that's like where the fair is, where all the people go. And look at these. There's no way these are made of like wood and fucking. But look at the size of them. There's no way.
have 20,000 dead people. These are strongly built structures. And again, as I talked to a building contractor, because that's where the book began to take its shape, was once I talked to the building contractor and asked him how long it would take. Could he build it today? Could he build the Chicago Exposition today? And he said yes, but it would take him 15 years. It's 2 years for the planning because it's such a massive thing. So they would actually need to plan it for 2 years. You do 2 years just for all the water work. You can see just in the photos you've had, these are all generated lakes and lagoons and rivers and etc. And this is on top of a swamp on top of it. So they've had to build on the swamp. They've had to grade it. They've had to turn into the pools. Then they've had to drive stakes, massive. All of these buildings are supposed to be supported by like 1,000 wooden poles driven into the swamp, and then building on top of it, he said would take another 10 to 12 years. So he said if he had a workforce of like 150,000 people and 15 years, he might get it built. So in 1890, how does this get done in 2 years? His answer was, it's not possible. It's like the pyramids of Egypt. It's just the story does not match the presentation. And then, like we say, it's not just Chicago. It's Chicago, Buffalo, St. Louis, New York, Nashville, Omaha, Seattle, Portland, and then all through the world. They're doing this and then destroying it. It makes no sense.
Right. And I believe that they said that they had 44,000 workers for Chicago. But even just thinking about the logistic, and this is what I love about your work too, is like just working, okay, this is the narrative, and then working logically back from that and going, where are all these people coming from? And how are they, where are they living while they're working here? How are they getting, like, I was saying to someone just before when I told them I was going to have you, and trying to poke holes in some of these things. And it's like, these people can't just go home they can't grab a pizza or something like that on the way home after work to fuel up for the next day. Like, how are they getting fed? What are they getting? Like, who's cooking for them? I think I did the math on something. The average hotel right now in America is 313 rooms. You put two people in there with the 44,000, it's equals something like you would need 70 full hotels for them to be in, right? And not to mention it's 2 years time frame in Chicago. They have winters just as intense as in Canada too. And it's sort of like, how would they survive building these when they only have, I mean, you would must lose at least what, 4 months out of the year due to weather conditions?
Yeah, they were very clear on that they didn't build during the winter as well. That's why they pushed the fair was supposed to be 1892, but they pushed it back to 93 because they lost so much time during the winter. That's one of their explanations. Yeah, it's all that kind of stuff. It's not only that, how do they get fed? Where does the food come from? Who's cooking it? Where are all the bathrooms? I think the number I had was 100,000 working on the Chicago Fair. 100,000 workers. How many bathrooms do you need? And then you get the problem of you look at the construction photos. So the construction photos, and again, this was something my building contractor was very concerned about, was that well, you do get a few images, particularly of St. Louis. St. Louis has the most construction photos along with San Francisco. But the problem with the construction photos is that generally this is that's Louisville, actually. That's the big fair they had in Louisville in 1893, tore that building down to build a movie theater. Is you'll get pictures of wood and plaster structures. And I don't doubt that buildings were built for the fairs. Because the thesis, sorry, I'm running all over the place. I'm kind of trying to answer your question and say things at the same time. I don't doubt that things were built for the fair. They had to be. The Midway itself, when you look at pictures of the Midways, as sort of the carnival area, you might say, those are definitely simplistically built areas. And a lot of the other areas you can see are built, and you'll have construction photos like that. The problem would be if you get a construction photo like this, the front of the Cascades at St. Louis, you will never see construction photos. You will see a completed building with scaffolding on the side of it and maybe a little bit of work on the roof. It makes complete sense if these were found buildings, as an example, if these buildings were already there and all you needed to do was clean them up and repaint them, then all you would need is scaffolding and a whole lot of people would paint. And they developed for these fairs a new technique known as whitewashing. And
so, like as I say there, whitewashing was developed for this fairs, probably to whitewash all these buildings that are all white. But as you can see, this is a completely different fair now. Got again all the water features, all the concrete barriers. Very, very elaborate building in the background there, and that's just one of many that will be at the fair. Fountains for man and boy, and apparently all knocked up in 2 years. Yet again, I think it's the official story. But again, just look at the elaborateness on these buildings, and again, this is in the 1800s when we didn't have modern technology, and again, he's saying about the workforce. It's just all. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. The first time I ever seen the pictures of these fairs, I was in awe. I was, what are these? When was this? Like, this looks like Rome. Is this AI? And no, these are the American World Fairs in the 1800s that look like Rome. It's unbelievable. Like, I mean, I'll play a bit more.
We know that what that word means in English, but in this case, it meant a power paint driver, which would drive white paint onto all the buildings at high speed, at high pressure, that was developed for Chicago. And so that's the first problem you got. The second problem when he looked at the photos is that not only is there no construction work being done on the big buildings, when you look at the ground around the large buildings, particularly St. Louis, he said he looked at it and it was just mud. And he said to me, well, where's the discarded coffee cup? Where's the sandwich wrapper? Where's the chair where somebody's sitting down? Where's the bathrooms of these guys? If you've got 50,000 workers going on constantly daily working, you can't possibly have a work site that is this clean, that has, I mean, you can't even clean this up for a photograph. There's no way you could do it. His response was, no one's been at this site for like a year. This is like this is an empty work site. This is not a work site at all. He's also looking, where's the building materials? If you're building stuff, even if you're building the scaffolding, you've got to have massive amounts of wood just sitting next to where you're putting up the scaffolding. He looked at the construction photos and said, nothing is going on here. So you have these issues as well of trying to explain buildings like this with no real proper construction photo. In fact, in times almost early photoshopped construction photos. You have things like this. This is the Pike in St. Louis, and we can talk about what's on these midways because this is where the historical narrative is being generated, is on these. But you can see this does not look the same as what you just looked at. This looks more like it's been built by Hollywood set building makers. So I don't doubt that lots of things were in fact built for these fairs. I don't doubt there were workmen. I don't doubt that there were 20, 30, 40,000. But if the majority of if the big buildings were already there, which is what my main thesis is, you've got that I now got a third option, but was one, they had a technology they're not supposed to have, and they really did build it all in 2 years. But it has to be them. They have to have an unknown technology, almost like 3D printing or something, like to make something like this. Two, the main buildings were already there, part of an ancient civilization that was worldwide, that these fairs were used to dig out, uncover, make look fresh, have the fair, and then destroy them after that. The third option I've come up with recently is that the buildings, what was the third one I had? Oh, I can't even remember what it is now. I actually had a third theory. I'll let you get a comment in while I'm thinking of that. Go ahead.
Right. Well, one of the things that I found fascinating too was, okay, you have, I mean, where's the funds coming from? So you have there's just straight up materials and all these different things. But I mean, I read somewhere that it was 44,000. But even if it's like you said, 100,000, you're paying them $1 a day or 50 cents a day, and you're doing that for 2 years. Those amount of people, like, you are getting into astronomical numbers for the time period. And then we haven't even really talked about building practices. Like, there are no power tools. And how are they getting to the works where are they living, but how are they getting there? And then even the people who are frequenting these things, this is horse and buggy, is it not? Like, there's no cars at this time. How are you getting these materials to the site?
Right. Exactly. These are important questions. One is the money. The money is being financed by what were known as the big barons of the day, the railroad and steel barons. They are the ones who were supposedly,
so the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds,
pumping in all the money for these things. But important when it comes to the money stuff, all of these fairs lose money, like a lot of it. The Philadelphia Exposition of 1876 lost $4 million in 1876. I can't even imagine what that would be, like, 400 million realistically today. It's lost. And yet everyone thought, this is a good idea. We need to do this again and again and again. And one of the things about rich people, one of the reasons they're rich and stay rich, is they don't lose money. And as soon as they get into a venture that loses money, they stop. Except here in the World's Fair ventures, they kept doing them again and again and again, which is saying they don't care if they lose money. Something else is going on. And when you start talking about one of the strangest things about Again, yeah, no power tools, no cars, no machinery other than you'll see some steam machinery once in a while at the later fairs. One of the weirdest things, if you look carefully, they don't build roads. They don't build roads to bring the materials to the site. And you see this, we were talking about that this style of building. This style of building exists all over North America. And like if you go to, if you see old pictures of in Canada, Toronto, Winnipeg, Ottawa, Montreal, you go look at photos from the 1920s, 1910s, you're going to see spectacular Greco-Roman architecture that slowly disappeared. There's not many things that still exist, like the Parliament Hill in Canada and Ottawa, and a few buildings in Toronto. But in the United States, if you live,
Two big obelisks as well to the right, so two big obelisks. So I've got sort of Egyptian meeting, Roman meeting. Again, it's just look at it. Look at how elaborate it all is. Every single building, every single thing, every single piece. Elaborate. This is a different one yet again, and another waterway. Again, it just doesn't make any sense of how they built this in the 1800s in so little time with what materials, who paid for it, and why destroy it all? Like, look how beautiful it is. Why destroy it all? It smacks that didn't build it and you were trying to cover it up, but you would thought, well, use it because it's so beautiful for these welfares. But after that, we'll blow it up and never mention it again. And it kind of worked, because up until people are bringing this back to light, this has kind of been swept under the rug of history.
in the US, you've still got all your state capitol buildings. And every state capitol building might as well be almost like a replica of the Parthenon in Greece. It's giant, it's massive, it's domed, it's columned. And then when you go look at the original construction photos of them from like usually the 1920s or 1930s, it'll just be in the middle of a mud field. So they've been dragging in supposedly marble and heavy stone and granite, but they didn't take a week to just lay a road down first to make the transport of the material that much. Obviously, that's step one. So so many of the pictures are smoking guns because you would not begin a project like that.
Yeah, I mean, imagine the size of and the weight of some of these obelisks and these pillars. Again, trying to bring them in on horse and cart through mud would be an absolute nightmare. It would be far easier building a road. If you were going to the bother of building all of this, why wouldn't you build roads? It's a very good point. And again, a lot of these photos you see of the early buildings like the White House and the courthouses and the elaborate buildings that look like this, there is no roads, it's all mud, and this is where the whole theory of a mud floods come from. I mean, there is buildings that have vanished under the ground in many ways, but some regrading's been done in certain areas. I'm not too sure on the whole mud flood thing, but that's kind of, I think, come about because a lot of these buildings, there's no roads, they're just surrounded by mud. There is some photos, it looks like we're digging some of them up from mud, so I don't know, but again, a video that's by Y-Files, he explains what would happen if we had a pole shift. And what would happen with a pole, if on the description on Y-Files of a pole shift, it would very much spread a layer of earth across the ground, according to his predictions on there from scientists. And you will be left with kind of a mud flood, is a prediction of a polar shift. So I don't know. I don't know if that's what's happened, if it happened in like the 1700s and we've just reset history. Again, I don't know if it's this guy mentions it or another guy I was watching, but we've been hearing that word reset for a couple of years since COVID, and this was kind of a reset after this kind of thing, it looks like. So are we due another reset? We've got that 31 Atlas coming in and people talking about that. I don't know. We've got perilous times coming, but this is a mystery to me, an absolute mystery. Like, look at this. It's literally like you're in Rome. It's like you're in Rome.
Bringing in that many materials without a road, and you'll find that at some of the world's fairs too. The construction photos have no roads built. So again, it's telling you right away, look carefully. The narrative is lying to you. And I'm not saying I have the answer. That's the other really key part of this. I'm not saying I know the answer to the question. I don't. all I've been able to do in the span of the 8 months I wrote the book and the 2 years kind of since is realize the narrative we're presented is obviously a lie. I've now seen that the whole narrative of the 1800s, and in fact, probably everything in history, is a lie.
Yeah. His story, again, it's his story. Whose story is it? The victors and the global elite, ruling elites, the people who built the world, Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, all these people. They also actually, back in the day, decided what would be taught in the curriculums in countries. And again, his story, it's the Rothschild story in many ways. That's what the history of the world is. So basically, we don't know. We really don't know the true history of this world. It's all been patched together by these wankers. Um, and it's probably not right because, again, they're completely missing out anything to do with all of this stuff. Who built all this? Well, you know what I mean? Who built all this? Because it clearly wasn't you. In the 1800s, there's no way. And again, it's kind of proof, obviously, as well. The Romans and all these previous civilizations, they had technologies of form that we didn't have to be able to build all this stuff. And it's history is a complete lie. To be honest, he is right there. He's very right in that last statement. History is a complete lie.
But that doesn't mean I have an answer, only that you can break the narrative down and at least stop believing the narrative and at least maybe have the possibility of getting pieces of information that may actually be true.
Right. And I think we were talking briefly before we started here that once you start to poke holes in these things, if you're someone who just believes the narrative sort of outright, you have to find the logical answer to these questions. But if you're just trying to find the truth, you can leave a question unanswered. But the person who's, I guess, arguing that it's all legitimate, how do you answer some of those questions, right? And some of the pushback that I got was,
well, you have an example. You said you got some people, you asked some people to their opinions of the fairs, and you got responses, sort of what you might call standard responses. What are some of those? What are some of the things you got when you were bringing it up with? And we can try to go through some of them right here.
Okay, so a couple, like, it would be too expensive to do a whole city. Like, why don't they build these nowadays, right? So it'd be too expensive to do a whole city like the fairground itself. So it's just in one localized spot, kind of like how countries host the Olympics and spend money on building that infrastructure. But the fair was to...
It's a good example. I'm not going to play any more, to be honest. Rob Edward is the name of the channel. It's on for an hour and a half. Very interesting, as you can see. I only started 12 minutes in as well, if you want to play the first 12 minutes. Well, very interesting. Again, there's something in it for me. There's no way these people built these buildings in 2 years in America in the 1800s and then blew them all up when they were finished. I mean, that's maybe what happened, but well, no, it's not. There's no way they built these. They must have found them. There's got to be somewhere in that. There's got to be somewhere in a reset. There's got to be something to do with the asylums and the orphans, and something happened in the early 1800s, it looks like, and we reset history, and the history we know today was kind of established in the early 1800s. That's what will be taught to the people, and that's our version of history. But none of this fits into it. It doesn't make sense. And a lot of these buildings, as he said, state capitals, the White House, still stand today. And some of these buildings here are better than the ones that stood today, and apparently they blew them all up when they'd finished. Just doesn't make sense. So that's the American welfares. I'll leave it there, but if you want to watch the rest of this, Rob Edward, very interesting, very interesting. I'll keep an eye on it and keep investigating and see where it goes, but definitely something in it to me, definitely something in it. I'll leave it there, peace.